boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. This is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things ready through a common sense lens. And boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it just feels like it's another day ending when there's another Marvel employee out there blaming their failures on, of course, the fans. That's right. It's the customer's fault. It's the audience's fault. You just didn't like these characters. You're just an itch, you're a phobe, you're a that or another, and you're the reason why these things failed. Of course, it couldn't be because of studio heads like Kevin Feige making decisions to embrace his entire franchises and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on characters that didn't sell in the comic books. And of course, none of fans actually were ever asking for or cared about nor wanted to see on the big screen in any way, shape, or form. No, it couldn't be all of the fan bashing from a lot of actors and actresses out there that tell you you're an ist or a phobe, and if you don't go and see their movie. It's not like the marketing around Eternals out there was saying that it was going to save lives because all of the LGBT representation. No, I'm sure it couldn't have nothing to do with any of the reason, any of that kind of nonsense. It couldn't have to do with any of the wham and power narratives where you literally end up turning a female character that nobody's ever heard of in a scroll series like a Secret Wars out there and fill them with all of the powers of every single superhero that's ever existed inside of Marvel, and now solely makes them the most powerful character in the universe, and essentially we'll never see or hear from them again. No, it would absolutely have nothing to do with that. No, boys and girls, it's all the fans' fault that the Marvels flopped. It could have nothing to do with it being a bunch of insufferable characters that nobody wanted or cared for. No, 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 boys and girls. It's your fault this thing flopped. It's your fault Disney Marvel lost hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office on the giant stinking turd that was the Marvels. At least that is the fact according to Marvel head Kevin Feige, because as you can see over here from the headline at cosmicbook.news, Feige blames fans for the Marvel's flop, then praises Miss Marvel's casting. Oh, yes, boys and girls. As usual, it's another day ending in Y, and it's not because they produce crappy stories about characters nobody cares about. No, it's all your fault for not showing up to the trough to eat whatever slop they've thrown down in there for you. So we're taking this article from cosmicbook.news, getting all of the juicy details of exactly what Kevin Feige said, and then, of course, show you the real reason based on the numbers, the audience reception, and the critics' reception of this movie as to why it flopped. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2K. We're sailing our way towards 2,100. I think we're sitting at like 2070, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below later what you think about all this. Does it surprise you at all that Kevin Feige is coming out there and blaming the fans for the absolute abysmal failure and disastrous dumpster fire that was the Marvels at the box office? Or do you agree with some of the statements here that Kevin Feige is making, and maybe that did contribute, at least in part, to how the hundreds of millions of dollars that they lost at the theaters with the Marvels? Let us know all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. And remember, all of those comments help with the algorithm, so please leave something down there below. All right, from cosmicbook.news and our dear sweet Matt McGloin. Make it make sense. Absolutely, Matt. Instead of showing up at Comic-Con to promote the release of Fantastic Four, as they did last year for Deadpool and Wolverine, which is not exactly showing a lot of confidence in Fantastic Four, despite some very highly praise from the critics and some good early estimates, Kevin Feige has opted for a press invite-only interview at Marvel Studios. Oh, a press invite only. So only the press that Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige wants to show up will be there. I'm sure that's not a biased interview in any way, shape, or form, is it, boys and girls? Those people couldn't be possibly biased and only be able to ask softball questions to Kevin Feige that never actually push back or challenge anything he says. Now would they? No, they'd never do that. The topic of the big-time failure of the Marvels came up as the film lost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars and failed to come close to the billion-dollar success of Captain Marvel, which, as we said, was actually due to being sandwiched between Infinity Wars and Endgame, and the marketing surrounded that movie that said, if you don't go see this, you're not going to understand what happens, yada, yada, yada. That was also the movie that literally Rotten Tomatoes had to change their algorithm over there on how they do the audience score, because that audience score was going into the toilet because so many fans were upset by what they considered a marketing bait and switch when it came to that movie. And I mean, even the movie on itself, despite the marketing bait and switch, I mean, seriously, the world's most famous spy lost his eye to an interstellar cat? Yeah, boys and girls. Yeah. And the hero of the movie, literally the first 5 minutes of the story, is beating up some random dude for catcalling her, stealing all of his clothes and his motorcycle. Yeah, that's the hero we really want to root for, isn't it? Huh. I wonder why the Marvels flopped. In various articles about the interview from the trades, the spin is in, as while the Miss Marvel, played by Iman Vellani, who is absolutely wonderful. The actress is a lovely kid. She's very nice. She's very sweet. You know, I don't have any problem with the actress in any way, shape, or form. I mean, literally, she's smarter than 90% of the Marvel actors and actresses out there, because when the Hollywood trade magazines did try to trick her into a gotcha question, she completely and totally dodged it like a boss and was just there talking about the fans and how much she loved the character. I mean, it was just a chef's kiss response. We even made a whole video praising the chick over it. So yeah, it's not her fault, but of course they're going to blame the character. Is blamed for the failure of the Marvels. At the same time, they report that Kevin Feige said everyone wanted the character in the MCU. Who? Nobody asked for this character in the comics. Her comics failed miserably. She can't hold a series on her own. They had to shove her into a Spider-Man comic that she had no right being in, with no direct connection to any of the characters, only for them to kill her off in some kind of heart-wrenching thing in order to sell comics, which also failed miserably and only got them a bunch of widespread criticism. If it doesn't work in the comics, it is not going to sell on the big screen either. And she did not. Not to mention, she was also part of the massive failure that was the Marvel Now initiative as well. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here what we said right here. But then it said no one is watching Miss Marvel actually hurt the Marvels. So if everybody was asking for her, why did nobody watch Miss Marvel? So in the end, it's the fans to blame, as they didn't watch Miss Marvel on Disney+. Yes, it couldn't be the fact that Kevin Feige decided to dump hundreds of millions of dollars behind a failed comic book character that no one was asking for, and the majority of the general model audiences had no idea who even was. Via Deadline, the site reports, the takeaway from what many fans and general moviegoers didn't buy tickets for the Marvels because they weren't caught up on Miss Marvel on Disney+. Oh, that's right. Because one character, or two characters technically, nobody had ever seen, you decided to make the stupid decision of making one of the mainstays, because you did not believe Brie Larson could carry a Captain Marvel sequel on her own. You decided to interject two characters from two Disney Plus shows, one of which failed miserably, and both of which the majority of the Marvel movie-going audience had not seen. Yeah, remind me again whose fault it is that this movie failed? Via The Hollywood Reporter, Feige says, and I think the Marvels hit the hardest, where people are like, okay, I recognize Brie Larson from a billion-dollar movie, Captain Marvel, but who are these other two, Iman Vellani and Teyonah Parris? I guess they were in some TV show. I'll skip it. Yeah, that's the reason people skipped it. It couldn't have anything to do with the all critics score of 62%, which means even the access media shills, the people whose livelihood depends on kissing Disney Marvel's big, disgusting, round rear end, couldn't even stand to give it more than a giant grade of F. Verified audience, the ones that our dear sweet Rotten Tomatoes approves of, 79%. All audiences, 63%. The top critics, even worse, 45%. Even the audiences that did go and see it, at best, gave this movie a C+. The all audiences gave it an F. Boy, I wonder why nobody went and saw this movie. Because even the ones that did, who, according to Kevin Feige, the only reason they went and saw it was because they watched the Disney Plus series with these characters in it, still, at best, gave it a 79%. So explain to me again how it's the audience's fault, Kevin Feige? Feige also said, via The Hollywood Reporter, it was a big company push, and it doesn't take too much push for us to go, people have been asking for Miss Marvel for years, and now we can do it? Do it! Who? The activists inside of your own company? The activists screaming psychopaths out there on social media? Those people have been asking and screaming for this character? Because clearly there wasn't enough of them to actually show up and make your show or your movie a success. Yes, that's right. Once again, chasing the mythical modern audience has failed miserably and blew up in their face. I mean, literally, according to the numbers, this movie never even broke $200 million worldwide. The reason why the numbers still show this is because after a month, 4 weeks, and less than $200 million globally, Disney Marvel stopped reporting on their own box office numbers, which is why this movie never cracked $200 million. Kevin Feige says it's the fans' fault that you didn't show up to a movie with a bunch of characters nobody asked for and nobody cared about. But that's right. It's our fault your movie flopped, Kevin Feige. Feige added via Variety, he singled out Miss Marvel and the Marvel star Iman Vellani as one of the greatest bits of casting we've ever done. Which, I mean, I didn't see the Marvel show, but I really like the actress as a person, so sure, why not? I can't wait to see her somewhere, but not in a Miss Marvel season 2, which is never going to happen, which we honestly might, outside of a cameo in Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars, it'd be a miracle if we ever saw the character again. And that's not fair to the actress. It's not her fault that Kevin Feige hired a bunch of activist writer hacks to write her series. It's not her fault that Kevin Feige decided to get in bed with the devil himself via the diversity, inclusion, and equity cult. It's not our fault that it's not her fault that Kevin Feige made any of those decisions. It just sucks that now she's going to have the albatross of the failure of the Miss Marvel character hanging around her neck. Hopefully people are smart in the future and don't blame her for that, and she'll still have a successful career. But at the end of the day, Kevin Feige is blaming us, not himself, for what has happened. Color us shocked there. Someone in Hollywood who's a complete and total narcissist and embodies the sin of pride can't admit that it was their fault things didn't work out. Regarding that somewhere, one of the outlets asked about Young Avengers. Potentially, Feige said, in that case, it comes down to where's the best story and what is the best strange alchemy? Who would be fun to see them with? Each other, because that's what the Young Avengers are, but also mixing it up more. Never going to happen. As I first pointed out, by the same time Young Avengers comes around, if ever, the actor will be nearing 30 years old. Literally, the next day, the scooper said Young Avengers has been changed to Champions. I wonder why. Kind of hard to do a Young Avengers with a bunch of actors that are in their 30s. It's also known that women didn't show up for the Marvels. Actually, a majority of the audience was made up of MCU fanboys. We can also add that approximately 2 billion Muslims in the world wouldn't have bothered to tune in. Who is exactly the audience for Miss Marvel? None of the outlets apparently bothered to ask Feige, who also had the Disney Plus viewership numbers and knew at the time the Miss Marvel was the least watched MCU show on the streamer. So yes, boys and girls, we know why Marvel failed. We know why the Marvels failed. We know why Miss Marvel failed. Because this is a bunch of characters that nobody asked for and nobody wanted. The box office numbers show this. The ratings numbers showed this on Miss Marvel. The audience scores and the critics' scores show this. That these stories, these movies were garbage. They were crap. Not only were they crap characters that nobody wanted, they were crap garbage stories. Because if it was still a good story, it wouldn't just be the audiences criticizing and roasting this. The critics would have said they would have praised this thing to no end. But they didn't. They gave it a 45%. But Kevin Feige instead decides to blame the fans because we didn't watch his Disney Plus series about a character that 99% of Marvel fans out there had no idea who. I'd say 90%. We'll say 90% of Marvel fans out there had never heard of or knew prior to Disney announcing that they were bringing this character to the big screen, to live action. And guess what? That's why it failed. It failed in the comics, and it failed in the movies and in the television shows. And Kevin Feige can sit there on his beloved high horse all day long and blame us, blame the fans, blame the critics, blame the audience, blame the effing customer for his failures. But at the end of the day, we know why Miss Marvel and the Marvels failed. It was because of the creative decisions that Kevin Feige and the rest of his ilk made over there at Disney Marvel. So whine, cry, and fan blame all you want, Kevin Feige, because at the end of the day, the fans' voices and the fans' money decide what succeeds and what fails. So play the blame game all you want. It won't change the fact that if you continue down this path going forward, you will be remembered as the man who killed one of the most successful franchises in history theatrically. Just like Kathleen Kennedy will be remembered as the head that killed Star Wars. Kevin Feige, you are an abysmal failure, and you are going to get exactly what you deserve. And blaming the fans will only make sure that happens even sooner. You danced with the devil, you refused to take responsibility for your own actions, and now you're going to get burned. How was it losing hundreds of millions of dollars on the Marvels and Miss Marvel? After all, fans decide.